In this training session, we will learn to manage the call dashboard. The call dashboard will be found here by navigating to Visit, Call Dashboard. When you click into the call dashboard, it will take you here, and the items that are here will be displayed daily. So when you first navigate to the call dashboard, each day the items here will reflect any discrepancies that would be on your dashboard. You will have a list, as in this particular example we don't have, but we're going to navigate to a different page where we can bring up some of the exceptions. On a given day, when you come in, it will display your current date. And if there are any discrepancies for that day, you'll see them here. So the discrepancies basically would be items that are not linked to a visit. So if you're utilizing schedules and there's a discrepancy where, for instance, we have an item would be called out of window, meaning that the caregiver clocked in and out too early on the shift, then that would fall on the dashboard because they clocked in earlier than the shift. On the dashboard itself, you have your filters here, where if you want to filter by coordinators, if you have multiple coordinators, you can always navigate and filter by that. The advanced filters might be collapsed. If they are, you can just click on here on the advanced filters, and then this will open up. If you wanted to search by a particular caregiver or service provider, you'll be able to just search for that person for a particular date range. If you notice here, there are also filters by contract. And here you have all your different statuses. The statuses basically reflect what items that are utilized by the phone, so IVR, which would be the interactive voice response. As you navigate down, then you will see the other exceptions that would fall across all the different processes. So if you're utilizing a fob, the mobile app, or the IVR, which is a phone, all of these will reflect the same exception that you will see across the spectrum for all of those services. So duplicate call, out of window, all of this would apply to all your different processes. The statuses that will be below are reflective of the GPS or mobile app. So if you're using the mobile app, these statuses will reflect the different exceptions that you will see there. In order to, I'm just going to scroll back up. In order to navigate to a particular grouping, you can always select here, look for that particular exception, and then search, and that will give you all your exception for that grouping. For the time being, we're going to be able to just leave that. If you have all your caregivers configured and you're looking by a particular status, you can always send a message or communicate with your caregivers from that option. And also, if you wanted to get a report, view report will bring up a report for the different exceptions if you like to group them in that order. For this particular scenario, we're going to leave the exceptions here so it can give you an idea of what they are. And actually, going back to the top, exceptions are there, but you also have a bucket, which we will go into shortly, that will reflect any schedules that the caregivers did not clock in, or in other words, if the calls are not linked, if you're utilizing schedules and they're not linked at the time that the schedules were done. For instance, you have an 8 o'clock schedule and the caregiver, and you are allowing a 15-minute window, the caregiver clocked in 45 minutes later, that visit is considered missed in and will appear here if there is no punch or clock into that visit. You also have a clock out, a missed out. So the visits that they did not clock out of, you will see in this grouping. And you'll also see a grouping for missed call, which is a combination. The visit log basically lists all your visits. If you want to see all your visits for a particular day, you can always do that, and I'll navigate to that shortly. Back to the call maintenance list. Ideally, this you would want to clean daily, multiple times throughout the day. And by keeping on top of your exceptions, then at least it will narrow the discrepancies that you'll have later on as you do billing and payroll. So here, just to give you an idea, if you had a particular one where it's basically saying that there's no schedule, the system is trying to navigate and attach a visit or a call to that. And then here, wherever you see this item, you can edit your schedule, or you can go here, and this will take you into the visit, and you'll be able to link the call if there's a call there to link. And then from here, you'll be able to utilize the reason and then also action taken and link that call. When you link that, then that item will fall off your dashboard. So that's how you would link a visit. Other things that you'll be able to do from here, if I go back to my main grouping here, I will be able to utilize same feature here, different caregiver. So the several edits you can do from here. If a different caregiver actually worked, you'll be able to click here and utilize the code that the caregiver entered here, save this and update this visit. You'll also be able to add a telephone number if a case arrives where you have more than one telephone number on the patient's profile. You'll be able to edit that here and hit save, and this will update the profile. Also be able to touch or modify your schedule. If the schedule was actually 9, you can actually change this here, and this will change it on the calendar on the patient's side. Several things you can do from here. Some of the items that I have here, for instance, will reflect like the mobile app. As we go through and we'll talk about the mobile app, we'll be able to see items that would reflect a caregiver clocking in at a location that is not listed as the patient's location. So if I click here on my date, I just want to isolate, and you can see you can sort by the different headers here on the system. So if I wanted to look, for instance, this would be a mobile item, and it'll tell you out of window. That means that the caregiver clocked in earlier or later than the scheduled time. With the mobile app, you will not be able to interact in this column. Instead, you'll be able to interact by utilizing the caregiver's name. And then here, if it was a situation where they clocked in earlier or later than the shift, you'll be able to simply come here, modify the schedule and link the call, or you could link the call from the dashboard if you have the icon to the right here for linking, which would be under this column. In this particular scenario, it's out of window, so basically earlier or later than the scheduled time. Situations with duplicate call basically means that there is a duplicate call, so there's 2 calls. The items you see here would be any task or duties that you're collecting, and if you interact by clicking on this, it will list the tasks that were collected on the clock out for the caregiver or service provider. Each of the items here, you'll be able to work depending on it by, again, utilizing the option for the status. But for most part, you will see the information. One of the heavier items that you'll come across here would be GPS out of range. And basically, by clicking on the icon here, you'll be able to navigate on that particular visit. So when you click on that, it will bring up the information on that particular visit that would relate to where your caregiver is when they're clocking in or out. For your other buckets or areas, so you can see here, this would be your missed ins and all your visits that did not have a clock in or so. And again, this would be a situation where there's no call linked to the visit, so it might not truly be a situation where they did not clock in. If you come here and you navigate, you'll be able to see by simply doing a find call. So action, you could come in, link, call. So if there's a call here, you would see it. In this particular case, this is truly an exception where the person did not clock in, and then you'll be able to communicate with them as to the reason why they did not clock in. The out, same situation, but they did not clock out, and you'd be able to see the list of visits below that would fall under that criteria as well. You would see all the items there, and the same for missed ins, which would be in and out. So you would just check to see if there was a call. The visit log itself, you could see all your schedules for a day. So by simply clicking on that, it will show you all your schedules, and it will always display the last call for the day first. So your last visit for the day will show, but if you wanted to flip the order, if you click on the word schedule, it will change the order, and then you'll be able to see all the calls that came in during that day. So you can use it for today if you want to see what was going on today, or you could go back to a previous day to see how overall the calls were done. On this particular area also, if you navigate to the bottom and bring this to the right, if you're capturing tasks or duties, you would be able to see the duties that were entered on the visit here at a glance. Very useful area that you can track things. The call log itself will just list all your calls that came in. Okay, just navigate there shortly. You can see by entering the telephone number for your patient or member, you'll be able to see any calls for a particular date range that came in and all the details of the calls and how they were done. Rejected call basically just shows you a bucket that would show you any calls that you rejected, and you'll be able to interact with those calls by either bringing them back and using them or simply putting them back into the maintenance bucket and then interacting with them there. So that concludes the training on the call dashboard.